things, as they also coveted. Neither become ye idolaters, as some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed fornication, and there fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us attempt Christ, as some of them tempted, and perished by the serpents. Neither do you murmur, as some of them murmured, and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now all these things happened to them in figure, and they are written for our correction, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore he that thinketh himself to stand, let him take heed lest he fall. Let no temptation take hold on you, but such as is human. And God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that which you are able, but will make also with temptation issue, that you may be able to bear it. Now you can stand up for the Gospel. Continuation of the Holy Gospel according to St. Luke. At that time, when Jesus drew near to Jerusalem, seeing the city, he wept over it, saying, If thou also hadst known, and that in this thy day the things that are to thy peace. But now they are hidden from thy eyes. For the days shall come upon thee, and thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round, and straiten thee on every side, and beat thee flat to the ground, and thy children who are in thee. And they shall not leave in thee a stone upon a stone, because thou hast not known the time of thy visitation. And entering into the temple, he began to cast out them that sold their ain, and them that bought, saying to them, It is written, My house is a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. And he was teaching daily in the temple. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Dear brethren, in the Gospel, we have listened to these words of our Lord. My house, my church, is the house of prayer. But you, he could have said, you, high priest, you tolerate that. You have made my house a den of thieves. And now, in the church, we can say they are thieves. Thieves of the faith, of the faithful. The liberals, Catholic liberals, and modernists who are occupying the church of our Lord. Jesus said, weeping over Jerusalem, if you also had known Even today, the truth that could give your peace, that is to recognize the kingdom of Christ. And because they did not want to recognize the kingdom of Christ, then some extremists will provoke a rebellion against the Roman in the year 70, and that will provoke the invasions of the Romans, who will destroy Jerusalem and the temple, and they will not let one stone over the other stone. Now the wall of the Lamentations in Jerusalem is not a wall of the temple. It was a wall of containment far away from the temple. But now you are blind as the modernist Rome today. As Bishop Lefebvre used to say, they are blind. Rome has lost the faith. According to the words of Our Lady of La Salette, for the days shall come upon you, and your enemies shall compass you round and beat you flat to the ground, and your children who are in you. And that is to come to Europe, to Rome, and it will be the end of this crisis of the church. Because you have not known the time when God himself has visited you. Today, Rome, as Jerusalem yesterday, is in complete apostasy since the Council Vatican II principle. God sent a great churchman to guide us in this worst crisis in the history of the church. In this general apostasy announced by St. Paul, by St. John, and by our Lord himself, as an unmistakable sign of the end of times. St. John speaks of two witnesses of the truth, Enoch and Elias. It is not yet the time, the case, but we have two witnesses of the faith of always, Archbishop Lefebvre and Bishop de Castromayer. But unfortunately, both of them have not been faithfully followed by their successors. Bishop de Castromayer has been betrayed by Bishop Lefebvre. Some years ago, I knew both of them, Bishop de Castromayer and Bishop Lefebvre, in 1972 in Brazil, when I was living in Argentina with my family, and Archbishop Lefebvre in the Holy Week of 1972. Later, Bishop Lefebvre honored me, giving me, for instance, free access to his correspondence, although I was not his secretary, being a seminarian. Archbishop Lefebvre was an outstanding churchman. Everyone who had known him agree with that, even his adversaries, even Benedict XVI. As we read in his wonderful biography by Bishop Tissier de Malvé, he was so extraordinarily sure of himself because he was absolutely sure of God and of the truth. And that was the secret of his radiance, of his influence. The Pope, Paul VI, reproached to his faithful to call him the Saint Athanasius of the 20th century. But history will remind him in this way. Bishop Lefebvre tried always to convince the popes, the cardinals, and the bishops to let him carry on with the tradition of the church. As he said it himself, nobody can say that I have not done everything possible to avoid a confrontation with Rome. But after 15 years, he saw that these people in Rome wanted to kill the tradition. And they always do think about it now. With the council, the popes create a new religion, liberal and modernist, humanist. And they tried everything to destroy the old religion. But the old religion, the ancient religion, is the religion of the apostles, of our Lord, and of 250 popes, and the true religions of all the saints of the history, of the Catholic centuries. The fact is that the Council, Vatican II, was a revolution by which the worst enemies of the Church took control of the Church, as pirates take control of a ship, or hijackers take control of a plane, of the cockpit of an aircraft. The same thing is going on now in the society of St. Pius X. The popes Pius IX and St. Pius X called the Catholic liberals and the modernists the worst enemies of the Church, mainly when they are priests, churchmen. And that is why Bishop Lefebvre, before the episcopal consecrations of 1988, after having run out all the possibilities and popes to be understood by Rome, and to have merely stated the fact of the lack of fairness, of loyalty of his counterparts, of his interlocutors, Roman interlocutors, like Cardinal Ratzinger, Bishop Lefebvre then abandoned this idea. He gave up with the conversations with Rome and proceeded with the consecrations. He then said, now it is over. It is a strict duty for any priest who wants to remain Catholic to separate himself from this conciliar church that is no longer Catholic, and who is leading the faithful to the apostasy. During the Holy Week of 1986, Bishop Lefebvre says something that Bishop Faure should remember. Bishop Lefebvre says, "The faith in our Lord Jesus Christ is truly the foundation of our sanctification, of our sanctity. There is no sanctity without the faith in our Lord Jesus Christ. Without faith, it is impossible to be saved." Our Lord told that. He told to the apostles, "Go and preach the gospel to all the world. Those who will believe will be saved. Those who want to believe will be condemned. No religious liberty, no right to not to accept the truth. God gave us eyes to see the reality and an intelligence to see the truth and the faith to see the truth of God. Today we are obliged to state, to see that the men who have precisely the duty to spread the faith, to defend the faith, are working away furiously to destroy the faith. We are obliged to see that, says Bishop Lefebvre. And he continued, "Then we must follow the Gospel of St. John, who is clear and definite in his letters. St. John and St. Paul. We must not have any contact with the unfaithful, with the infidel, with the heretics. But Bishop Faure had, on the contrary, continuous contacts with them. Since 1995, with the Greek, who was composed of representatives of the French Episcopal Conference, from priests of the St. Peter, Christ the King, all the ecclesiastical organizations. And of course in Rome, where he told us he has new friends. But he's quite naive, unfortunately. And because of their doctrinal conversations with the Romans, in 2010, the superiors of Menzingen were impressed, were convinced by the Romans that they were in an abnormal situation, canonically speaking, as all of them are saying now. Bishop Faure, Father Nelly, Father Flügel, all of them. They feel themselves out of the Church of Rome, that they consider as the unique church of our Lord, when, on the contrary, it is a conciliar church in the hands of the enemies of the church, of the enemies of the faith, of the Catholic religion, in the hands of the Catholic liberals and the modernists. We were all the worst enemies by the Pope, the worst enemies of the Church. So we have a pope for two churches. For the church of the pirates, the conciliar church, and mysteriously for the church of Christ, the true church. In the history, in France, one king had an accident and became mad. So they shut in the castle. They shut the door of the castle and they let the king, the mad king, in the castle, with a good service. But he did not govern the country. He was mad, but he was a king. And his son had been later the king of France. It's a little, these things, what is happening now in the church. In his letters, St. Paul, in his letters, in the epistles to the Corinthians and to the Hebrews, observed, and Bishop Lefebvre observes that St. Paul and St. John, with extreme energy, insist, you must separate yourselves of the infidels, of the heretics. There is no communion, more or less full. There are only two camps, the faith and the infidelity, with a dike between both of them. But now, in Rome, they speak of more or less complete communion with anybody, with the Masons. When Bishop Faure saw the audience with the Pope Benedict XVI, you can see on the photos, it is the most beautiful day in his life. He's under the charm of the Pope. Bishop Faure, as the other ones in Menzingen, have studied very well what is modernism, what is Catholic liberalism. But when he saw the Pope, he forgot everything. He just the representative of the authority. But Benedict XVI, as a theologian, have written many books with many huge errors, heresies. Benedict XVI says that the cross of our Lord is not an expiatory sacrifice. It is written many times in his book, for instance, the introduction to the Catholicism, or called in other countries, the faith yesterday and today. And you can get this book in any library. And he is going on asking for the reimpression of his books. And the man who makes these reimpressions is Cardinal Müller in Rome. That do not that says that the Blessed Virgin Mary is no more virgin after the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ. And he is writing a book about the theology of liberations, Marxist, with founder of the theology of the liberations. And now you could see in internet this photo when they gave to the Pope, who do not a symbol of the theology of the liberation. The crucifix with the symbols of the communism. And so after the doctrinal conversations in Rome, Bishop Faure says, we are in complete doctrinal opposition. But it is unrealistic to wait for the conversion of Rome. So we must get a practical agreement. And Bishop Faure is very optimistic. He says we can see the first signs of the spring that is coming in the church after the conciliar winter. His exact words are speaking of the situation of the church. At a certain moment, towards the end of winter, you see on the trees new buds. They just come out. It's a little thing there. When you can see that, you know, spring will come, is coming. But people will tell you, hey, come on, it's winter, it's freezing, it's snowing. Don't say it's spring, it's not true, it's winter. And we say, well, Bishop says, both are right. He says that in the church we are beginning to see the small signs that allow us to say that spring is coming. Where are these signs? From my personal point of view, I would rather say, as Benedict XVI said, that the church is looking like the Titanic. Benedict XVI said, the church is like a boat, filling up with water from everywhere. No spring. And so we are in this situation today. On this Sunday, we shall ask to the Blessed Virgin Mary and to her mother, Saint Anne, who is the patron of the mothers and of the grandmothers, because she was the grandmother of our Lord. And she is the patron of Brittany in France, very popular. And so, of course, her daughter, the Blessed Virgin Mary, cannot forget anything that Saint Anne asked to her. So we must have much confidence in Saint Anne, and we must pray her that her daughter maintains us in the faith. In the name of the Father,